Tiana is 1000% the most underrated Disney princess ever. I mean, the movie as a whole is overlooked all the time. The animation of the film is underrated, the songs are underrated, the characters are underrated. Everything about this movie is underrated. Besides maybe this man right here. He's probably overrated. Hey guys, my name's Lila. I cover your favorite animated films and TV shows, and today I'm talking about the 2009 Disney movie, The Princess and the Frog, and seeing why this movie doesn't get enough appreciation, and also reviewing the movie as a whole and my thoughts on it. Okay, so The Princess and the Frog is a Walt Disney Animation Studios movie, with Tiana being the 9th Disney princess and the first African-American princess. Now, I just rewatched The Princess and the Frog, and overall, I would say it's pretty good. I don't think it's amazing, but I definitely think it should get more credit than what it gets now. So, if you haven't seen The Princess and the Frog in a while, here is a summary of what happens. So we open with Tiana's mom telling the story of the Frog Prince to Tiana and her friend Charlotte. And Tiana's mom works for Charlotte's father as a seamstress to make her big poofy princess dresses. Now the story is set down in New Orleans, and Tiana's family isn't wealthy compared to her friend, but she lives in a very tight-knit community and already has a passion for cooking like her father. So then we fast forward to when Tiana is 19 years old and she still lives with her mom, but her father sadly passed away in the war because it's a Disney film. Now Tiana's an extremely hard worker and saves all of her money, and honestly I should be taking some notes from that because my bank account is not looking too hot right now. But can I just say, those beignets look so scrimdiddlyumptious, and now I just really want one, and there's no way I'm gonna get one at 2 o'clock in the morning. But anyways, today is the day when Prince Naveen comes to New Orleans, and Charlotte is freaking out telling Tiana about it. So Charlotte's family are throwing a huge masquerade party tonight, and Charlotte wants Tiana to make 500 beignets to win over the prince. And from this, Tiana finally has all the money that she needs for her restaurant. So she almost fully bought the building, but she still needs to sign some papers. And then she sings one of my favorite Disney songs, I'm Almost There, which motivates me every time I feel like a lazy slug. So then we just cut to Prince Naveen doing whatever he pleases, but his assistant, Lawrence, is extremely annoyed. And then we learn that Prince Naveen's parents actually cut him off, so his only options are either to marry rich or get a job. So that's when we officially meet the villain of the story, Dr. Facilier, or the Shadow Man. And I feel like a lot of these songs in this movie are just straight bangers because Friends on the Other Side is so good. And honestly, I was just singing it in the shower after rewatching this movie. But back to the story. The Voodoo Man reads their future and promises Naveen all the money that he wants without having to marry or be tied down. And he promises Lawrence exactly what he's always wanted, aka to be the man he's always wanted to be. So they end up making the deal, and obviously it turns out to be a trap and not exactly what they thought it was. So Naveen ends up turning into a frog and Lawrence turns into Naveen. But he has to wear a special necklace filled with Naveen's blood or he will turn back into his normal self. So then quote-unquote Naveen shows up to the masquerade party. At the party, Tiana learns that she was actually outbid and that she isn't getting the building for the restaurant. So Tiana is moping outside when Naveen, who is now a frog, mistakes her for a princess. So Tiana ends up getting persuaded into kissing him to try and break the curse for money. But Tiana just becomes a frog as well. So Tiana and Naveen in their frog form end up ruining the whole party or making it more interesting and getting chased out. And that's when the Voodoo Man and Lawrence realizes that Naveen had escaped. So then we cut back to Tiana and Naveen, and they ended up in a big swamp and almost gotten eaten by a bunch of animals. And that's where they meet Lewis, the alligator, who takes them both to see Mama Oldie, who also does voodoo but might turn them back into humans. So then we cut back to the villains, and Lawrence is running out of blood in the necklace. So they need to go off and fetch Naveen and get some of his blood back. And that's when we finally meet Ray, the lightning bug, who wishes to be with his love, Vangelina, who's actually a star in the sky that you might recognize from some other Disney movies. And right now the evil voodoo spirits are out on the search for Naveen, and they finally find him, but Mama Oldie saves him in the nick of time. Mama Oldie basically tells them that Charlotte is the only one who can turn them back into humans. So they need to get to her before midnight and have Naveen kiss her. Now at this point, Naveen does not want to marry Charlotte for money, but he would do anything to make Tiana's dreams come true, and she says that she needs the money the first thing in the morning. So after deciding to go through with marrying Charlotte, Naveen gets himself captured by the evil spirits and no one immediately notices. And that's exactly when Tiana sees who she thinks is Naveen and Charlotte about to get married. And my girl is in the trenches. So then Ray is determined to find out what's going on, and he finds Naveen trapped in a box. And they basically crash the whole marriage ceremony. So Ray took the blood necklace and ran off with it, giving it to Tiana, while Ray tried to hold off the evil spirits and fight them. And that's when the Shadow Man gave Tiana the opportunity opportunity to get everything she would ever want if she doesn't break the necklace. But she decides to break it anyways, and the Shadow Man had his soul taken by the evil spirits. And honestly, it's a really creepy scene. So then finally, Naveen and Charlotte almost kiss, but then Tiana interferes and doesn't want them to marry anymore, and finally confesses to Naveen that her dream wouldn't be complete without him. Charlotte, being the great friend she is, says she doesn't care about marrying him and that she's happy for Tiana. But then the clock rings, and Charlotte tries to kiss him, but it's a second too late. Louis then comes back with Ray, and he died from the evil shadow spirits kicking him, and it's a really sad scene. Tiana and Naveen end up getting married, and that kiss finally turns them back into humans. So Tiana finally gets her restaurant, and they all live happily ever after. And this movie's just underrated and overlooked, but it's so good. Okay, so now I'm gonna talk more about the characters of this movie. I obviously have to start off with the protagonist, Tiana. This girl motivates me every single day to get off my butt and actually get stuff done. She works 2 jobs, literally saving every single cent she makes, but is completely obsessed with her dream to own her own restaurant. And honestly, I really loved her relationship with her family. It's just so lovely to watch. Even after her father passed, she still wants to make sure all of his hard work wasn't for nothing. And seeing her finally realize that he had everything he needed already was really lovely to watch. And no one ever talks about Tiana's blue dress, but seriously, it's so stunning and it just looks so beautiful on her, and I love everything about this whole scene. Now moving on to the prince of the whole story, Naveen. Okay, so I know that some of you guys might be coming for my neck for what I said at the beginning of the video, that Naveen was overrated, but I stand by that opinion. I mean, throughout 70% of the movie, Naveen is exactly the type of guy I hate being around. He's a quote-unquote ladies man and expects everything to be handed to him on a silver platter. He was pretty arrogant and had recently been cut off by his royal parents. He also had no work ethic or passion or even knows how to do anything for himself. And I know the whole point of the movie was for Naveen to finally realize what's wrong with all of that, and he eventually does, and he fixes it, but the problem is I just don't find it believable. It was a whole 2 days, and you're telling me this dude had a whole personality flip and went from being a spoiled rich brat his whole life to a charming prince? I just feel like the only reason he really changed was because he fell in love with Tiana, and I feel like there should have been a better reason for why he changed. I mean, what would happen if he fell out of love with Tiana? Would he go straight back to being a douchebag? I mean, I guess getting transformed into a frog would be kind of traumatic, but he was still an arrogant douche there too. Although I thought it was really weird how quickly he changed his personality just because he fell in love, I did really enjoy watching him fall for Tiana throughout the film. But with that too, I honestly feel like Naveen fell for Tiana really fast. I mean, falling in love with her is one thing, but marriage? You guys have known each other for a couple days. Why are you talking about marrying her? I mean, I guess it is the 1920s, but I still feel like you don't marry someone that fast. I mean, this isn't a Disney movie. You know what, actually, never mind. So let's move on to the Shadow Man. We don't really see a lot of his backstory, but there's enough implied that if he doesn't do everything the Shadows want, he's screwed. And I definitely feel like he is an underrated villain because he has a great voice, he looks awesome, and I absolutely love his songs. Plus, his shadow is such a cool addition. It reminds me of Peter Pan, except like evil. And I love how they interact with things differently, and I think it was a really good idea on the animation team's part. But now it's time to talk about probably my favorite character out of the whole movie, Charlotte. Charlotte is actually a pretty good friend for the most part, besides her selfish tendencies, and she actually reminds me a lot of my own friend, and if she heard me say that, she would probably murder me. But Charlotte has a very out there personality, and has been spoiled most of her life, and she's pretty unaware of everything that's happening around her.
Travis, when a woman says later, she really means not ever.
But this girl is not ashamed to say that she just wants to marry a prince for the title. So good for her, I guess. But I also do like that she was really good friends with Tiana, and that she was so happy that Tiana finally found her true love. And you can tell that Charlotte really does care a lot for Tiana in the story. Now I quickly want to touch on Louis and Ray for a second, because I think that Louis is a pretty good addition, and I love him just sitting with the guys in the costume party. But I would definitely say that Ray stands out more, especially with his death scene being so sad. I really do hate any death scene, but that one just really hurt my heart. And I love how he was always rooting for Tiana and Naveen the whole time. But I also think his whole love for Evangeline was adorable, and I'm really happy that he finally got to be with her, and he actually ended up being the second star to the right. And since we're talking about Ray, this is probably one of the most relatable moments I've seen in a while.
No matter what you look like. It don't nobody gonna sing with Ray. Okay.
Now, before I really get into why I think this movie doesn't get enough recognition, I want to talk about the message of the whole movie. And that is that dreaming and wishing on stars can only get you halfway there. And that you have to work extremely hard as well so that your dreams can actually come true. Charlotte is a good example of this because she only had half of that, which was the wishing on the stars part. And Tiana on the opposite end only had half of that too, which was working super hard. Tiana was so focused on her goals that she forgot about all the nice things in life and that you should enjoy them with your family and loved ones. Another message of this movie is that money isn't everything. One thing I never realized about this movie before rewatching it is how money-centric it is. I mean, the voodoo man even says, the real power in the world isn't magic, it's money. And there's obviously a huge class divide between Tiana and Charlotte, and the whole reason why Naveen shake the Shadows man's hand to begin with was for money. I mean, even the whole reason why Tiana even kissed Naveen as a frog was for money, because he offered a reward that she could use for her restaurant for kissing him. And right from the beginning of the movie, we're told how Tiana's dad may have never gotten the restaurant he wanted, but he was still happy without money. Mama Olda even talks about this in Dig a Little Deeper when she says,
I wanna be rich again. That ain't gonna make you happy now. Did it make you happy then? No.
and obviously I have to quickly touch upon the animation of this film because it's amazing. I'm just so absolutely obsessed with the 2D animation that they use, and it makes me so sad that this film didn't particularly perform well at the box office because I would have loved to see more 2D animation and not as much 3D animation, which is typical for Disney movies now. And actually, The Princess and the Frog was the last 2D animated film that Disney has done since. And I also love the animation, and I'm almost there. I think it's stunning and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I could just rant for days about how much I love 2D animation. But now I'm finally going to talk about why I feel like this movie doesn't get the recognition it should. One thing that I really think impacted the movie as a whole was the marketing of it. The title is literally The Princess and the Frog, and I think that's a good title towards young girls, but this movie could have easily been marketed towards young boys as well, and I don't think there's absolutely any Disney movie that's for quote-unquote just girls, but this title is more girly and could have portrayed it that way. Not a lot of people saw it, and maybe it had to do with the dark magic in it that scared off some kids, because I know when I was younger, when I was watching those scenes, it scared the living daylights out of me. One thing that could have also impacted the success of the movie was the animation. Although the animation is literally stunning, it did have an old Disney look, and most films at the time had a more 3D CGI animation look. And I don't know if this would necessarily impact the success of the movie or not, but something that just threw me off was the fact that there are literally frogs for like 80% of this movie, and I understand that was the story they went with. However, Tiana is literally the first African American Disney princess, and I think they should have not made her a frog the whole movie. And there are probably a ton of other different reasons why The Princess and the Frog didn't have as much success, especially behind the scenes and with marketing. But overall, I really do love this movie, and my favorite part of it all definitely has to be the animation. I just find it so enchanting and beautiful. But my girl Tiana should definitely get way more credit because she is a great character and deserves so much more recognition as a Disney princess. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and if you guys want to see more of your favorite animated films and TV shows, make sure to subscribe and like the video. Okay, thanks, bye!